Welcome to Retro Video Playback and to episode 4 of Tape Talk Tuesday, an episodic video series where I showcase and discuss various movies on VHS. This episode I will be showcasing one of my favorite movies, a movie I once watched 3 times in one day.
Dazed and Confused.
Originally released in September 1993, Dazed and Confused marked writer-director Richard Linklater's second feature film, the first being the indie cult classic Slacker. Though funded by major movie studio Universal Pictures with a budget of close to $7 million, the movie in many ways feels like a low-budget independent movie, which I suppose some might consider $7 million to be. The story follows various high school students on the last day of school in 1976, including kids going into grade 9 and grade 12, freshmen and seniors. This movie often receives a lot of praise for its accuracy in its representation of the 1970s, which can be credited to the fact that Richard Linklater based much of the story and its characters on his real life in high school in the 70s. Specifically, he was a senior in 1976. This movie has a large cast, including many actors that would go on to have successful acting careers, including Milla Jovovich, Oscar and Golden Globe winner Matthew McConaughey, Joey Lauren Adams, and of course, Ben Affleck, who won an Oscar for co-writing the screenplay for Good Will Hunting just 5 years after appearing in Dazed and Confused. Funny enough, another Oscar-winning actor appears in Dazed and Confused, though often goes unnoticed in the movie and is uncredited, and that's Renee Zellweger, who auditioned for a bigger role but ended up serving as a background actor in at least 3 scenes throughout the movie. Dazed and Confused arrived on VHS in February 1994. Featuring a bright green and purple tie-dye background, the front cover contains Dazed and Confused written in large retro yellow letters. Below the title is the catchy tagline for the movie, "It was the last day of school in 1976, a time they'd never forget, if only they could remember." In the center is a group shot of 4 characters, Michelle, Slater, Pink, and Dawn. The inclusion of Michelle, played by Milla Jovovich, is odd to me. While she did go on to have arguably one of the more successful acting careers of the Dazed and Confused cast, next to perhaps Ben Affleck and Matthew McConaughey, she was not yet a successful actor at the time of the release of this VHS, and she's frankly barely in the movie. It isn't uncommon for an actor to appear in a movie early in their career, and then once they go on to be successful and the movie's later reissued, that actor is then featured on the reissued art with the intent of drawing audiences in, regardless of how much or how little the actor was actually in the movie. But that's not the case here. Milla Jovovich was reportedly in the original cut of the movie with a much more significant role, along with her on-screen boyfriend Pickford, played by Shawn Andrews, but the movie was too long and had to be cut, cutting both actors' roles down to about as small of roles as possible. A logical explanation I can think of for Milla Jovovich's inclusion on the cover is that the promotional shots were completed and established prior to the final cut of the movie being completed, when she was still in the movie with a substantial role. In my opinion, it would have made a whole lot more sense to have included either Mitch or Wooderson on the cover, considering their significant roles in the movie. The only reason I could come up with for her inclusion on the cover is because they wanted a female character on the cover, but if that were the case, I think it would then feature either Jodie or Simone, who both had decently substantial roles. At the very bottom of the front cover is a lot of information, so let's rattle it off. There's production credits, a Gramercy Pictures logo, stereo sound, closed captions, and R-rating icons, some copyright information, an MCA Universal logo, and in the center of all of this are 3 more interesting items. First, a Dazed and Confused smiley face, which we'll get a better look at on the spines of the tape. Next to which says, "Get the nostalgic Dazed and Confused scrapbook from St. Martin's Press at bookstores everywhere," a book that I happen to have right here. I won't dive into it here, but perhaps in a future video. Next to this, it says soundtrack available on the Medicine label, a soundtrack which I also have right here, along with the second soundtrack released a little later. Finally, in larger font, it says featuring music from Aerosmith, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, ZZ Top, Alice Cooper, Bob Dylan, Kiss, War, Peter Frampton, and more. That's a lot of detail on the front cover. The spines feature the same MCA Universal and Dazed and Confused logos as the front cover. Next is a closer, larger, and more colorful look at the Dazed smiley logo we briefly saw on the front. Fun fact, you can spot this smiley somewhere in the movie. Hint, it's on an article of clothing. If you know where it's found in the movie, leave a comment below. Completing the spines are VHS, Hi-Fi, and Dolby Surround stereo logos. The backside of the VHS features yet another MCA Universal logo, with some copyright information and a barcode. Next is the Dazed and Confused logo before arriving at the movie's write-up and some photos. Typically on Tape Talk Tuesday, this is where I would provide a description of the stills from the movie, but in this VHS's case, 2 of the 4 photographs are not stills from the movie, but instead are actual photographs taken on set. The first is an alternate shot of the front cover featuring Slater, Pink, and Dawn posing the once popular, for some reason, Hear No Evil, Speak No Evil, See No Evil. Next is a shot of Michelle, which I actually can't tell if it's a shot from the movie or not. To the lower left is a still from the movie where Jody and the other seniors are sprinkling ketchup, mustard, oats, and flour on the freshmen. And finally, in the bottom right is another posed promotional photograph of Mitch and his fellow freshmen. It was bongs and bell-bottoms, polyester and puka shells, macrame and mood rings. We rocked and rolled, we were jaded and innocent, but most of all, we were dazed and confused. With hilarious and touching honesty, this critically acclaimed comedy from writer-director Richard Linklater explores the last day of school and one rowdy night in the lives of a group of high school students in late May 1976. Everybody's along for the ride. The jocks, the jerks, the stoners, the cheerleaders, the in-crowd, even a long-since graduated high school wannabe. And at a wild and crazy midnight beer bash, friendships will be made and lost, futures pondered, romances kindled, and the freshmen, having endured a nasty hazing at the hands of the incoming seniors, will plot their revenge. Accompanied by the music of Aerosmith, Alice Cooper, Foghat, and more, a superb ensemble cast delivers the most slyly funny and dead-on portrait of American teenage life ever made. Closing out the sleeve is the color identification, the movie's runtime of 1 hour and 43 minutes, and various icons we saw earlier on the sleeve. The tape contains a white label summarizing the various pieces of information we've seen throughout the sleeve. And hey, what do you know? Not one Universal logo, but multiple as a part of the background. Printed in the USA. Dazed and Confused comes from a time where VHS and home media were pretty gigantic in the 90s, and given that it takes place in an even earlier time in the 70s, the movie feels right at home on VHS. It looks good, sounds good, and feels good. Next is this very cool promotional VHS, which I picked up around 10 years ago off of eBay. It features the same green and purple smoke background as the standard copy of the VHS, but instead of the character's group shot, we have the more appealing, to me anyway, stone smiley graphic. With this being a promotional copy that would have been distributed leading up to the mass market release of the movie on home video, we have some information in a yellow box on the bottom half of the cover. Full-length screening cassette includes promotional trailer, compliments of your video sales rep. Please return promptly after viewing. Then we have an MCA Universal logo and some copyright information. Unfortunately, as you can see, there's some marker on it covering up a line that reads not for sale or rental. But it's a cool piece nonetheless, and it's one of the more unique VHS tapes in my collection. I took a look on eBay, not as a means of assessing value, but of determining availability. And at the time of recording this episode, there's only one copy available of this version of the movie on VHS for just under $100 US. I've checked on this tape's availability over the years, and the number of copies available tends to fluctuate. So if this is a copy you're interested in getting, I recommend being patient and waiting for a more affordable copy to be listed. The spine of the sleeve does not contain the smiley from the front cover, and like the standard edition of the VHS. Instead, it contains the same Dazed and Confused font, with full-length screening cassette written in plain font. The back of the VHS contains a lot of information, so I'll read it off. Dazed and Confused screening cassette. Spectacularly funny. The ultimate party movie, socially irresponsible and totally irresistible. A quote from Rolling Stone magazine. 2 thumbs up. A quote from Siskel and Ebert. The American Graffiti of the Next Generation, which, very good movie. A quote from New York Daily News. A comic time machine, an engaging, touching film. A quote from Gannett News Service. And then we've got some promotional bullets. Fresh from its successful national theatrical release, Dazed and Confused features a brilliant ensemble cast destined to become the fastest rising new stars of the 90s. How right that was. Capitalize on the 70s revival sweeping across America. Bring on the new good old days. Featuring the hottest soundtrack on record. Get it? Great 70s hits from Aerosmith, Kiss, Foghat, Peter Frampton, Alice Cooper, and more. A Dazed and Confused trailer appears on all rental cassettes of Splitting Heirs, plus the 1994 first quarter in-store preview reel, creating anticipation and POP impact for this outrageous new title. Rentals That Rock, a hot music video for the Kiss hit Rock and Roll All Night, created from dazed footage, is receiving extensive airplay on MTV, boosting awareness of film among key target audience. So the purpose of these bullets, if it wasn't clear, is to sell the movie. It's a means of creating buzz for the movie by outlining what it's doing to sell itself, and further sell itself on home media, either with press or maybe even investors at the time. At the bottom, we've got some final content. Coming your way, February 23rd, 1994. Color, 1 hour, 43 minutes. Video cassette number 81495. LTBX Laserdisc 41826. Advertising and promotional details subject to change without notice. Closing the back of the sleeve out, the theme of these VHS tapes, we have another MCA Universal logo and some copyright information. Being just a promotional copy of the movie on VHS, clearly not a ton of effort was put into the tape's label design. We've got Dazed and Confused written in somewhat simple font, but with a bit of 70s feel to it. It also reads Demo Tape Only above the final MCA Universal logo I hope to mention in this video, and then a bit of a warning. If you have rented or purchased this cassette, call 1-800-662-6797. Federal law provides severe criminal and civil penalties for unauthorized distribution or reproduction. I do wonder if 1, that phone number is still active, and 2, if there's any sort of statute of limitations on the selling of this tape. Pressing play on this screening tape, it starts out with a trailer and featurette for Michael J. Fox's movie For Love or Money, and then an ad or a featurette for video home rental profits, specifically attributed to romantic movies, of $508 million relating profits to For Love or Money. It also adds some information about available merchandise. Following this trailer is a Dazed and Confused trailer. It's the original trailer and contains various scenes from the movie, but what stood out to me was a clip from the movie I've never seen before. A cut line during the conversation where Pink drives Mitch home after the baseball game. Mitch asks Pink if he's going to be quarterback next year, to which Pink states he doesn't know if he'll even play. These lines from the scene do not appear in the movie and are not found in the deleted scenes found on the Blu-ray. It would seem that, though brief and insignificant, this part of the scene can only be found in the original trailer for the movie, which can be found on YouTube if you're interested in watching. Next is a Dazed and Confused featurette, with the narrator citing positive critical reviews, discussing the soundtrack, and then stating that Dazed and Confused will be a hot rental.
And a comic time machine. Dazed and Confused features a soundtrack that is the rockinest on record, with a 70s revival sweeping the nation, and with MTV giving extensive airplay to the popular music video drawn from the movie. Dazed and Confused should be one hot rental for everyone in any generation with a hankering for the old days.
The Dazed and Confused trailer is followed by a trailer and a featurette of Monolith, a movie I've honestly never heard of, and then a trailer for an animated series, Family Dog, another one I've never heard of. The tape then moves through some available upcoming video releases, including 15 Alfred Hitchcock movies, classics I have heard of. We then get a really brief trailer for The Slaughter of the Innocent, before finally moving into the feature presentation of Dazed and Confused. We get a quick Property of MCA Universal notice at the start with the Universal logo, and then a crawl at the bottom of the screen stating, if you have rented or purchased this cassette, call 1-800-NO-COPIES, 1-800-662-6797, the same phone number found on the cassette label. Dazed and Confused is beyond a cult classic. It's recognized as both an incredible movie and for having an incredible soundtrack, and has been featured, referred to, and spoofed throughout pop culture since its release over 30 years ago. It's infinitely rewatchable on any format, from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray and 4K in various packaging. I would say that it's my most rewatched movie ever. What's yours? That brings us to the end of our discussion on Dazed and Confused on VHS, and the end of episode 4 of Tape Talk Tuesday. Thanks for watching Retro Video Playback.